All right, let's talk about something that touches pretty much everyone: faith and finance. For a lot of people, those two things can feel worlds apart. But today, we're digging into a framework that actually connects them, looking at how to move from that feeling of financial stress to what our source material calls a financial breakthrough. So let's unpack it. Okay, so I want to kick things off with a number that might actually surprise you. Ready? 2,350. So what is that? Well, according to our source, that's how many verses in the Bible are all about money and possessions. Now, just to put that number into perspective, that is nearly double the number of verses about faith and prayer combined. I mean, let that sink in for a second. Our source points this out to make a really clear point. This isn't some minor topic. Finances are a super central theme in the biblical text. So that begs a pretty big question, doesn't it? Why? Why so much talk about finance? And according to the source material we're looking at, the answer is way deeper than just, how to budget your money. The answer, it turns out, has everything to do with a fundamental shift in your mindset. It's all about changing how you think about money, moving from that feeling of being totally overwhelmed by financial stress to a place that feels a lot more empowered. I mean, let's be honest, managing money can feel like a constant battle, right? Especially when times are tough. And our source gets that. It's not presenting scripture as some kind of magic wand that makes all your problems disappear. Instead, it's framed as a source of wisdom, a kind of guide to help you persevere when things get hard. And the end goal of this whole framework? It's something the source calls a financial breakthrough. So what does that mean? Well, it's defined as getting to a place of real financial growth and stability, but by using these very specific faith-based principles that we're about to jump into. Okay, so how do you actually get to that breakthrough? The source material we're looking at breaks it all down into 3 key lessons, and these lessons are designed to completely redefine the way we look at our relationship with money. So here's the roadmap. It's really a 3-step process. First, acknowledge the true source. Second, understand money's role. And third, embrace a mindset of abundance. Let's take a closer look at what each of those actually means. All right, so lesson number 1 is all about shifting your perspective. The idea here is that things like your job, your clients, your investments, they aren't the source of your income. Think of them more like channels or pipes. According to this framework, the actual source, the true provider, is God. And this verse from Deuteronomy really drives that point home. It says that the power and skills you have to build wealth, well, that ability is a gift. So the focus here isn't just on the money you earn, but on recognizing where the ability to earn comes from in the first place. Okay, lesson number 2 tackles a really common idea, that money is somehow inherently bad or evil. This framework completely reframes that. It suggests thinking about money as a valuable tool, something you can use to create positive change, to support your community, and to take care of the people you love. And that leads us right into the 3rd lesson, which kind of ties everything together. It puts forward the idea that financial flourishing is actually an intended outcome. But, and this is a big but, the purpose isn't just about piling up wealth for yourself. The whole point is to enable generosity. It's that classic idea of being blessed so that you can be a blessing to others. All right, so we've got these 3 big ideas, but how does this all play out in the real world? Well, the source material talks about something called a generosity cycle. And this is a perfect illustration of that cycle. You've got 2 sides of the same coin here. On one side, a verse from Luke connects the act of giving to receiving abundantly in return. And on the other, a verse from Malachi promises these overflowing blessings when you give. So the core principle is pretty simple. Generosity is what kicks off this whole cycle of receiving. So let's pull all these threads together. When you look at the whole picture, what's the big message here from our source material about how your faith and your finances are connected? Well, here are the key takeaways. First, your spiritual well-being and your financial well-being, they're deeply connected. Second, the idea is to shift your focus away from worry and toward trust in a provider. Third, wealth isn't the goal. It's a tool for being generous and fulfilling a purpose. And finally, putting all this into practice isn't a one-time thing. It takes consistent faith and, as the source suggests, even actively declaring these beliefs. So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on, something that really gets to the heart of this whole framework. If you really started to see wealth as a tool and not the ultimate goal, how might that change the financial decisions you make day in and day out?